All right, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another show, another live show. Today we'll be dealing with the issue, the incident that took place several days ago in Sri Lanka. Very quickly, let me see. Amrul Afiq says, Assalamu alaikum, brother Shadi. Can you make a refutation to the missionary claim that Paul is considered a messenger in the Quran? Yeah, I'm familiar with the argument. There's no proof whatsoever that the Quran mentions Paul. Those verses don't mention Paul at all. What they do, because those verses don't mention the name Paul, is not there at all. It's not even a reference to Paul at all. So what they do is they go to a tafsir, right? But the tafsir also does not mention Paul either. And the tafsir gives three versions of the claim of whoever these persons were. The verse mentions that some messengers had been sent or something, right? Like some Christian messengers or something to this effect. But the tafsirs are inconsistent, or the explanation, because it gives three different versions, right? The one of them that they try to harp on is that one of the persons in the name of the list is they mention three names. One is like Shalom. I forgot the three names, but it's like one is like Shalom, Shaluk, and one name is Ballis. So they claim that the name Ballis is Paul, right? I don't know how they came to that conclusion, but they claim that this person Ballis is Paul. Then in the other versions, it mentions three other names. Matter of fact, you know what? Let me pull it up. For those who are watching this, we are going to talk about the subject. Just bear with me for a moment while I address this issue. Let's see. Let's see. Maybe we may have to make inshallah, make a separate show about that. We can do a separate show about that. But let me see. Let me show you. Let me show you real quick. Okay, yeah, let's see here. So, let's see. All right, let's see. Right, so basically, here, let me pull it up on the screen for you so you can see. While we address this real quick. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, by the way, yeah, don't forget, donate, help your brother out. Inshallah, join our Patreon, send a donation. You can use the sites there. All right, but let's go ahead and pull this up. All right, so by the way, this is a shout out to the website called Responses.com. Okay, they have the same information. So here's the verses that they use, as you see on the screen. It says, "Behold, Allah said, O Jesus, I will take thee and raise thee to myself and clear thee of those who blaspheme. I will make those who follow you superior to those who reject faith to the day of resurrection. Then shall you all return to me, and I will judge between you of the matters wherein you dispute." Okay. So really, that's the verse that they use to make the claim, right? That's the verse that they use to make the claim. Now, let's see. I want to show it if he shows the tafsir. Alright, let's see. Hold on a second. Hopefully he has the tafsir about this. We have the tafsir. Let's see. Come on. All right, let's see. This week gets to the tafsir. Let's see here. It's in Ibn Kathir. I'm trying to see if he has that available. Let's get that. Let's see. doesn't have it. Hold on a second. All right, he doesn't. I'll pull it up. Hold on a second. Because the Tafsir shows. Matter of fact, I should probably just go to the Tafsir instead. Let me see. Maybe my brother on this Answering Christianity has it. Let's see. I may have to just go to the Tafsir because these guys are not talking about it directly. None of them are addressing that thing directly like that. Let's see. All right, hold on. I'm just gonna go to the Tafsir and just show you myself right there. Let's see. Again, those who watch this later, you will see that I am going to address the subject. I'm just dealing with this quick thing real short, real quick. Just bear with us. All right, let's see here. It is 3610, right? 3610. Wa alaikum salam, Mahmoud Zarid. Zarid, that's your name. Welcome. Muhammad, assalamu alaikum, welcome. And welcome the others who are here as well. All right, so let's see. Let me pull this up very quickly so we can get to the topic at hand. It is for 3610, right? So 3610. All right. So 36. And verse 10. All right. No, wait, that's not it. 3610. Wait, okay, let's see. All right. 3610. You sure that's the one they? Wait a minute, I don't think that's the one they use. Wait a minute, let's see. Let's see. Okay, right. We sent two messengers. No, wait a minute. All right. Okay, yeah, here it is. I think this is it right here, right? Let's see. All right, yeah, here we go. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this is it right here. Here we are. All right, here it is right here. Okay, so this is the Tafsir, and this is the verse that this is the Tafsir, because like I said, the verse doesn't say Paul at all. All right, the verse doesn't say Paul at all. And when you look at the Tafsir does not say Paul either. Okay, here's what the Tafsir says. It says, the story of the dwellers of the town and their messengers, a lesson that those who belied there. It says a similitude, the dwellers of the town when there came messengers to them. In the reports that he transmitted from Ibn Abbas, Kab al-Ahbar and Wab bin Munabbih, Ibn Ishaq reported that it was the city of Antioch in which there was first of all, I want you guys to notice that this does not come from the prophet, right? The Prophet Muhammad is not giving, it doesn't go back to the Prophet Muhammad giving the explanation. But as you will see, that Paul is still not mentioned here anyway, and the reports are inconsistent, so there's no proof anyway, right? But here, let's take a look. It says that Ibn Ishaq reported that it was the city of Antioch in which there was a king called Antiochus, the son of Antiochus, who used to worship idols. Allah sent him 3 messengers whose names were, these are the names: Sadiq, Saduk, and Shalom. Okay? And he disbelieved in them. It was also reported from Burda bin al-Husayb, Ikrama, Qatada, and Az-Zuhiri that it was Antioch. Some of the Imams were not sure that it was Antioch, and as we shall see below after telling the rest of the story, if Allah wills. So that's one version, right? So now the next version goes on to say, keep reading down. It says, and we sent them 2 messengers. They denied them both, means they hastened to disbelieve in them. So we reinforced them with the 3rd, means we supported and strengthened him with the 3rd messenger. Ibn Jurayj narrated from Wab bin Sulaiman from Shuaib al-Jabat. Once again, it doesn't go back to the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad is not offering these explanations, and this is why you see they contradict each other. Look what this one says. So now this one has different names. This one has 3 other different names. This one says the names of the first two messengers was Shamun and Yahuna, and the 3rd name was Baulus, and the city was Antioch. So as you can see, the first one said Sadiq, Saduk, and Shalom were the names of these messengers, right? This one, this other report by Ibn Jurayj, Ibn Wab Sulaiman, said that the 3 names of the persons, the messengers, were Shamun, Yahuna, and the 3rd was Baulus, or Bulus. I don't know, Baulus. Now that's the one that they claim is mentioning Paul. I don't know who told them that Bulus was the Arabic equivalent of Paul, but this is where they claim that Paul is mentioned. But as you can see, who told them that Bulus means Paul? I've seen no evidence of that. I've seen no evidence that Bulus means Paul. Okay. And here's a 3rd version. Look at the 3rd. Let's scroll down. Look at the 3rd version. It says, verily we have been sent to you as messengers, meaning from your Lord, who created and who commands you to worship him alone and with no partners or associates. This was the view of Abu al-Aliya, Qatada bin Di'ama. Notice again, none of these 3 reports go to the Prophet. You guys said that? See that? None of these 3 reports go back to the Prophet. So the Prophet Muhammad did not give this interpretation of these verses. The Prophet Muhammad, as we can see, did not say these were the names. And as you can see, the 3 versions contradict each other. And you know what Allah says about contradictions, Quran chapter 482. If it had been from any other than Allah, you would find contradictions. And here we see contradictions. So now this 3rd one says this. This narration by Abu al-Aliya and Qatada bin Di'ama claimed that they were messengers of the Messiah, peace be upon him, sent to the people of Antioch. They said you are only human beings. I don't think this one even mentions the names. So this one doesn't mention any names at all. Yeah, the 3rd version doesn't mention any names for what I can see, and Paul is not mentioned in that one either, right? So no proof whatsoever authenticated from that Paul is mentioned. First of all, no evidence that Paul is mentioned, and as we can see, these don't even go back to the Prophet Muhammad. They don't even trace back. They're not coming back directly from the Prophet. They're from these other people. And the 2 that mention the 2 names, the names contradict each other. All right, the names contradict each other. Right? Shamun, Yahuna, Bulus. The other one says the names were Sadiq, Saduk, and Shalom. Completely different names. You see that? Completely different names. So this is the claim that they make somehow, that Paul is supposedly confirmed or whatever. But as you can see, the verse itself does not mention Paul at all. Right? The verse itself does not mention Paul at all. And the tafsirs don't mention Paul either. Like I said, they have this name Bulus. Bulus, what's that? They claim that's supposed to be Paul, but I see no evidence that Bulus means Paul. And as I said, it still wouldn't hold any weight because none of these go back to the Prophet, and they contradict each other. Which names was it? Was it Sadiq, Saduk, and Shalom, or was it Shamun, Yahuna, and Bulus? They both can't be true. So therefore, either way, it holds no weight. Okay? So hopefully that clarifies that. All right? So now let's get to the subject at hand. Let's get to the subject, the original subject of today's show, which is the incident that happened in Sri Lanka, the unfortunate incident that happened in Sri Lanka. First of all, before I even get into the subject, which is about the Muslims who actually warned the officials in Sri Lanka about this group. And there were reports saying that, the officials did take it seriously, or they ignored the reports, and unfortunately the incident took place. But there is evidence that they say Muslims, the Muslim community or the Muslims in Sri Lanka, did warn officials or authorities about this group before the event happened. Okay? And you'll understand why I'm making the subject about that. But before I begin, let me just say very clearly that again, these type of acts are not Islamic, although the haters like to try to always, make it like it is. But these type of acts are senseless. Like, there's no benefit in doing such a thing, right? What benefit is there to go and do a random attack on people in their places of worship? And of course, this is in the Quran too, where the Quran says, don't harm the places of worship, even of other people. Don't harm trees and the monasteries and things like this, right? Don't harm these places. So, but as I said, it's senseless for Muslims or anybody else to do this kind of act. But in particular, let's address the Muslims. For Muslims out there, these type of acts bring no benefit. They bring no benefit. Right? What good does it do to go and harm people sitting in their places of worship? What benefit does that bring? It doesn't bring anything. How does that help your cause if you're in your country? Because I see reports that the people who are allegedly responsible were saying that this was like some kind of act of revenge for Muslims being oppressed in Sri Lanka. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that if that was true, if that's true, that Muslims in Sri Lanka are being oppressed, how is harming people in their church while they're worshiping on their holiday, how is that going to stop the oppression of Muslims in Sri Lanka? How's that going to stop? How's that going to stop the oppression? Right? You're harming innocent people. You're harming regular people in their churches. They're not. It's not like it's a battle between you and the military who's trying to oppress you allegedly. You attacked innocent. You attacked innocent people. You attacked regular people who are just in their places of worship. How would that benefit your cause? How would that stop the oppression? If you're being oppressed in Sri Lanka as Muslims, how would attacking these places, these non-military targets, how would that help your oppression? How would that benefit you? How would this help you remove the oppression off of you that you claim you're suffering? It wouldn't, of course, because these people obviously have nothing to do with that. Right? It's like as if there's somebody who is harming me. Right? There's somebody that would be like there's somebody harming me or harming a person. Right? The person is hitting you in your back with a stick. They're constantly hitting you in the back with a stick. So you say, okay, I'm going to get revenge, and you go beat up that person's mother. But the person is still hitting you in the back. You didn't fight them back. You didn't fight the person hitting you with the stick. Instead, you go and attack their mother, who has nothing to do with the person hitting you in the back. So you go beat up their mother, but the person who has the stick and hitting you in the back is still there hitting you in the back with the stick, because you didn't do anything that was that would help your cause. All you did was attack their mother, and she had nothing to do with it. She's not involved in any way, shape, or form. She's sitting at home. You go beat her up, but you left the person who's hitting you in the back with the stick alone. That would be basically the equivalent of what these people have done. It brings no benefit to you. It doesn't help your cause. It doesn't remove the oppression. It's like it's senseless. It's useless. And it's against Islam. All right? But the reason why I'm bringing this subject is because, as you should know, you probably have seen it, the haters always love to take, these incidents and, of course, paint Islam with the wide brush. I was checking out Robert Spencer and, of course, David Wood and the Apostate Prophet were talking about it the day or the night that it happened. Robert Spencer from, on his Twitter is posting things about it, and, of course, they never want to talk about the fact that, it's not something that can be blamed on all Muslims, not even in Sri Lanka, because the Muslims in Sri Lanka actually reported these people to the authorities. But they don't tell you, but David Wood and Apostate Prophet, they won't talk about that part of it. Instead, they want to paint that as if all Muslims are this way. Robert Spencer won't talk about that fact because they want to paint as if all Muslims are this way. Right? So they won't talk about that, because to talk about that fact will hurt their cause. Right? So as you see here on the screen, we have the article here. Sri Lanka Muslims had warned officials about group behind attack. So the reason why I bring this is to show and dispel the myth, because it's always painted as if Muslims, are on the side of the people who do such acts like this. That Muslims are on their side. That Muslims are quiet about it because secretly the Muslims are, support these people. But the evidence says otherwise. The Muslims in Sri Lanka warned officials about this group, proving and refuting the haters that claim that, the Muslims are in favor of this and the Muslims support this or secretly support this or whatever. No, the Muslims reported this group to expose them, showing that the Muslims were not in favor and are not in favor of such activities. That the Muslims don't condone this. The Muslims don't support this. So, as you see here, again, Sri Lanka Muslims have warned officials about group behind attack. It says, for members of Sri Lanka's Muslim community, it's no surprise that local jihadist group National Tawheed Jamaat is being blamed for deadly bombings that killed nearly 400 people on Easter Sunday. Hilmi Ahmed, vice president of the Muslim Council of Sri Lanka, said he warned military intelligence officials about the group and its leaders about 3 years ago. On Monday afternoon, Sri Lanka's government said National Tawheed Jamaat was responsible for 6 suicide bombings at Christian churches and luxury hotels. Targeting the non-Muslim community is something they encourage. They say they have to kill them in the name of religion. Ahmed said in a phone interview from Colombo on Monday, I personally have gone and handed over all the documents 3 years ago, giving names and details of all these people. They have sat on it. That's the tragedy. And something that's interesting about stories like this is that a lot of times we hear stories like this, even when terrorist acts happen in other countries, we hear that the officials were warned about these groups. We sometimes find out that they had contact with these groups, with members of the groups. They were talking to members of the groups. And then you find out the act happened. You say, wait a minute, but how'd that happen if you were in contact with these people? How did it happen if you were talking to these people? How'd that happen if you were watching these people? Right? Many times you find strangely that a lot of these people who are involved in these terrorist attacks, you find out that officials, agencies, police or intelligence agencies had contact with these people. And then you wonder, like, well, wait a minute, if you then how'd that happen? And that also seems to me strange, is that they seem that a lot of times they seem to have contact with these people. It's like, Strange that they always have contact with these people, yet the act is always carried out. Strange. But nonetheless, in Sri Lanka, we see that this, the leader of this, or the head of this Muslim council, appears to have given a good amount of information, documents, names, details of these people. And he says, unfortunately, the officials, they sat on it. And that's the tragedy. And as I said, a lot of times we see reports after a terrorist attack happens, that you find out that a lot of times the law enforcement agencies had some type of contact with these persons. They visited the person and spoke to them, and then, but somehow the act still gets carried out. Makes you wonder sometimes what's really going on. Right? It makes you really wonder what's really going on. He said the National Tawheed Jamaat has been broken up into various groups as individual leaders pursued separate funding sources, Ahmed said. Although not all members of the group were radicalized, the group is extremist in their thinking, he added. All right. And I think I just saw some recent articles where the Sri Lankan government is saying that, unfortunately, that they did fall short in this regard. So we wanted to just show this, to show that the narrative that the Muslim community at large supports these people or condones these type of attacks or are silent or whatever is a myth. It's just a myth to demonize Muslims and further promote the bigotry. The Robert Spencers and the David Woods and apostate prophets and others who try to promote this idea just do this to promote their bigotry against Muslims, when the reality is that Muslims in many cases are the ones who help law enforcement by giving over information, reporting these people, giving tips to help foil the plot, etc., showing that the Muslim community is not in line with these people, does not condone their action, does not support them. This goes with many other incidents that have taken place, as well, as the title says, as the title of today's topic says. The Muslims that warned them and Muslims that have warned about other terrorist attacks. For example, some time ago in Canada, there was a plot, right? Back in 2013, there was a plot to, I believe that was to blow up some trains or something between the United States and Canada. Guess who helped foil the plot? Muslims did. Here we see in the article, Muslim Imam tips helps foil Canadian terror plot. So the Muslim community is not in support. Many times it is Muslims who help foil the plan of these people acting and trying to perpetrate these acts. But a lot of times that is not promoted widely through the media. Right? I have some of my notes here that I've used in my debate. I also used this in my debate against Robert Spencer. This was a rebuttal to Muslims are doing nothing to combat radicalization. Perhaps, inshallah, I may add this to my Patreon notes if those of you are interested in getting these notes as well. But I'll read them off for now. Here was an article in the National Post by Peter J. Thompson showing that in Toronto, there's a Toronto mosque that offers a 12-step extremist detox program for radical Muslims that its director says is the first of its kind in Canada. The specialized de-radicalization intervention program is intended to provide treatment and counseling to young Muslims sympathetic to the Al-Qaeda ideology. That was the program is from Mubin Sheikh program, right? We also have here that from a sheriff in LA County, Sheriff Lee Baca. He testified before Congress in 2011, and he said that many planned attacks have been foiled because of tips from Muslims and Muslim communities. 7 of the past 10 al-Qaeda plots in the United States were foiled by tips from the American Muslim community. Again, the point is to show that contrary to what the bigots like to claim, that the Muslims actually secretly support these people, the fact is the otherwise, that Muslims actually do not support these people, and many times provide tips to law enforcement to help foil and thwart these plots, these violent plots that these people who say they're Muslims attempt to carry out. Another one, former New York Police Department Commissioner Ray Kelly told CNN's Fareed Zakaria that his department has a strong working relationship with the New York City Muslim community. Here we have an article by Ian Johnson, staff writer, NBC News. Said the 2 suspects in the alleged al-Qaeda-backed plot to blow up a rail, this is the same one that I mentioned earlier, rail between the United States and Canada, appeared in court on Tuesday as revelations emerged that the Muslim community helped foil the potentially deadly plan. So Muslims are not sitting by as they claim. These people like to claim that the Muslims, that these plots are being hatched in our community centers and in our masjids, and that the Muslim community is sitting by listening and not doing anything because, they support these kind of attacks and these acts. I saw Robert Spencer post something earlier today about in France that some official in France is calling for surveillance of Islamic centers and all that stuff like that, because again the idea is to promote that, well, we got to watch these people because they're not doing anything, which is another subject that I want to talk about, which is the hypocrisy of how they want to watch all these Islamic centers, but you're not doing a damn thing to watch these white racists. Right? We just heard that yesterday another white racist committed another act of terror against a Jewish synagogue here in the United States and California, but you're not watching them, huh? Right? You want to call for surveillance of the Muslim Islamic centers, but you're not calling for the damn surveillance of these white racists as they continue to carry out their terror attacks. But you're too busy worried about Islam. That's to Robert Spencer, right? So they want the surveillance of the Muslim community, but he's kept his mouth shut about these white racists. So inshallah, look for a show. I'm going to probably do another show about that, where we talk about the hypocrisy of how all these white racists are committing these terrorist attacks, but Robert Spencer keeps his damn mouth shut about that. Matter of fact, I just saw him also talking about, they talking about what happened in Sri Lanka and Notre Dame and all that stuff like that. But I called out his hypocrisy because here in the United States, there have been a series of violence or vandalism against black churches, right? Black churches, churches that are by black people have been targeted by racists and have been burned. And this has been going on for a number of years. Even back into the 90s, I used to collect articles of black churches being burned, and where they clearly show were racially motivated. In fact, they caught, I believe the other day, they caught the person who's responsible for the burning of some of these black churches, and he's a white supremacist, and his father was the sheriff, or is the sheriff of the county in that area. You see, and then again, there have been reports of white supremacists infiltrating law enforcement, joining police departments. But Robert Spencer is running his mouth about surveillance of the Muslim community, but he's keeping his mouth shut about surveillance of these white racists. But like I said, we'll leave that for another show. Inshallah, look for my next show to perhaps be about that subject. All right. So again, but today's subject is just to refute the claim and the myth that the Muslims are silent when these people are doing these things or making plans, and that the Islamic centers need to be watched because Muslims are hatching these plans in the Islamic centers and in their masjids or in their mosque, when the reality is that the Muslims community has helped foil many of the plots. Just as we heard LA County Sheriff Lee Baca say that, and this is old too. This is old, but he says 7 of the 10 past Al-Qaeda plots. This is when he testified in 2011. He said 7 of the 10 had been foiled by tips from the American Muslim community. The Muslim community is not sitting by silent. The Muslim community is not allowing these things to be plans to be made in their community centers and in their masjids, and nobody's saying anything about it. No, they're exposing these plans. right? Here we have Representative Keith Ellison, who is a Muslim congressman here in the United States. He said that at an event earlier in the year, this was again a few years ago, by the Center for American Progress Action Fund, he said about a third of all foiled Al-Qaeda related plots in the United States relied on support or information provided by members of the Muslim community. Another one, a recent MPAC report details numerous plots stopped thanks to help of Muslim Americans, including the recent attempted car bombing of Times Square. Remember that one happened a few years ago, where the guy was attempting to bomb Times Square? It's that plan was stopped by a Muslim, which was foiled in part by the help of Senegalese Muslim immigrant Alioune, how you say this guy? Alioune Niasse. I guess how you pronounce it. Alioune Niasse. Hopefully I pronounced that name right. But yeah, he was a Senegalese Muslim brother here in the United States. He helped foil that plot. So this is proof that the Muslims are not standing by and doing nothing. They're not remaining silent. They're not in favor of these things. They're not secretly supporting these people. No, Muslims have helped thwart these attacks. All right. We got more information on it as well. Here's another article, a recent article, sort of recent, from the Vox. Muslims do report extremist threats. Right? Muslims do report extremist threats. In fact, this Muslim man reported Omar Mateen. This is an article by Khalid Lewis. No relation to Shadi Lewis. But it says that Donald Trump insists that the key to stopping terrorism is having Muslims report on one another to the FBI. But Omar Mateen, the shooter who killed 49 people at a gay nightclub in Oklahoma, was turned in to the FBI. And the person who did it was a fellow Muslim from Mateen's own mosque. In an op-ed published in the Washington Post, Muhammad Malik wrote that he tipped off the authorities after he had a conversation in which Mateen confided that he had been listening to the lectures of Anwar al-Awlaki, a radical Yemeni imam. He hadn't committed any acts of violence and wasn't planning any as far as I knew, Malik wrote, but it was something agents should keep their eyes on. As a result of Malik's tip, the FBI opened a file on Mateen, but eventually closed it because at the time he showed few serious signs of criminality or radicalization. So once again, see, Muslims report these people, officials do have contact with them or watch them or whatever, but they decided to close it down. But Muslims did report. As a result, so it says, for the Muslim community in Port St. Lucia, Florida, the process unfolded exactly how Trump and his supporters argued that it should, and in fact often does. A member of the community noted suspicious behavior and turned over that information to the authorities. Still, Islamic-phobic rhetoric and assumptions flourished in wake of the shooting, according to Malik. Yeah, you see, exactly. So Muslims are helping, Muslims do report, but Islamophobic rhetoric still persists, like the type we hear from Robert Spencer or David Wood and the Apostate Prophet and all these other idiots out there who promote their bigotry. But the reality is the opposite of what they claim. The reality is that Muslims actually do report and are speaking out and do give the police, the law enforcement, the FBI, and whoever the information and report these people. They're not sitting by and listening to this and acting like, yeah, we agree with this. No, that's a fallacy. But this is why we call these people bigots. You understand? This is why we call these people bigots, because they're promoting this idea that demonizes Muslims as if Muslims are in favor of what these people do. And that's far from the truth. Okay? So it says, the article goes on to say, there's so much suspicion, suspicion of Islam here. The local paper published an unsigned editorial called "Leave Our Peaceful Muslim Neighbors Alone," and the comments were full of hateful lies, that the Boston bombers had visited the area, that the September 11th bombers came from here, that we were a hotbed of violent ideology. None of this is true. Donald Trump didn't create these attitudes, but he plays on them and amplifies them. Muslim Americans do report signs of radicalization, and they do it often. The myth of widespread Muslim, this is exactly what we're talking about. The myth of widespread Muslim complicity in terror attacks has been debunked, both often and thoroughly. Yes, when I debated Robert Spencer on Is Islam a Religion of Peace, I brought up these same facts. Because he's one of those people who tries to promote this idea that the Muslims, like, we're some sneaky, underhanded people who, we actually support the terrorists, and, we're hatching these plans. We all sit around in our masjids planning how we're going to kill the infidels. It's a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of BS promoted by bigots. And that's why we call them bigots again. Because, see, they try to keep telling us that, oh, we call them bigots when they're only trying to criticize Islam. That's not what we call you bigots. We don't call you bigots when you criticize Islam. We call you bigots because of these bigoted ideas that you promote, such as this, that the Muslims are sitting back planning and plotting how to kill the infidels, and we do this in our masjids, and we sit around in our masjids plotting and planning how to kill the infidel, and when we hear it, we don't say anything because we agree with it. That's bigotry. That's why we call you bigots. Not because you criticize Islam, because you promote actual bigotry against Muslims, and you try to demonize Muslims. So as the article says, the myth of widespread Muslim complicity in terror attacks has been debunked, both often and thoroughly. The director of the FBI has directly refuted Trump's claim. Gallup has reported that since 9/11, Muslim Americans have helped law enforcement prevent nearly two of every 5 Al-Qaeda terrorist plots threatening the United States. The Muslim Public Affairs Council has developed and advocated a community-based violence prevention and intervention model. And they have good reason for doing so, as Jennifer Williams wrote for Vox. Not only do Muslims want to stop the direct loss of life and destruction that can result from an attack, but we also want to halt the damage to our image as a religion and a community whenever someone carries out an attack in our name. American Muslims have every reason to report suspected terrorism activity, and we're not going to stop doing it just because a few politicians say ugly things about us to win votes. But regardless of these facts, and regardless of the relatively small threat that terrorism poses to the average American, Trump hasn't backed away from either his proposed Muslim ban or his accusations that Muslims aren't trying to stop terrorism. Right, because that helps promote the bigotry. That's what the racists and the bigots want to hear. And that's why Robert Spencer and David Wood and Apostate Prophet and the other idiots that promote this idea, this is what they do. They do this because this is what a lot of white racist bigots want to hear. They don't want to hear the facts that we actually report terrorist attacks. They don't want to hear that we're not the boogeyman hiding in our masjids waiting to kill them all. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that we're actually reporting these things and we give tips to the law enforcement. They don't want to hear that because they want to believe, as I always said, they want to remain bigots. You see? These devils, they want to remain the devilish, racist bigots that they are. Right? They're not like a true, sincere person who, once they get the good information, they say, oh, wow, I was wrong about you people. Right? I was wrong about you people. No, they don't want to hear that. Because they want to be bigots. That's the unfortunate thing about these human shayateen, is that they want to remain bigots. They don't want to change their mind about Muslims. They don't want peace. They want to hate the Muslims. So they don't want to hear these facts, that the reality is that Muslims actually help stop the terrorist attacks. Right? They don't want to hear that. But you know what's the reality? Check this reality out too. Check this reality out too, is that although the bigots call for, they want to call for the surveillance of the Muslim community, the masjids and all that. Check this, look at this article right here that says that when they do this type of mass surveillance, the record shows that they haven't been able to stop any terrorist attacks from doing that. How do they stop the terrorist attacks? By what we just already showed you, by Muslims giving tips to law enforcement. Widespread surveillance doesn't help. Oppressing the Muslim community doesn't help. It is what stops the terrorist attacks is the Muslims themselves warning government officials, telling law enforcement, calling the FBI, the CIA, etc. That's what helps stop the attacks. So this report shows that U.S. mass surveillance has no record of thwarting large terror attacks regardless of Snowden's leaks. This is, of course, an old article, but nonetheless still holds relevancy today. It says, despite the intelligence community's attempt to blame the NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden for the tragic attacks in Paris on Friday, the NSA's mass surveillance programs do not have a track record before or after Snowden of identifying or thwarting actual large-scale terrorist plots. Okay? So this is the facts for all these bigots who always say, oh yeah, we need to watch them, have them under surveillance and all this nonsense. The fact is that such things don't really stop any terrorist attacks. But as we saw, what really helps is Muslims calling in and reporting these people. That's the facts, but the haters don't want to hear that. The haters don't want to hear that. Right? The haters don't want to hear that. Because it doesn't fit their narrative. You understand? That it doesn't fit their narrative. Right? So that's the unfortunate thing. The brother Radash, yes. Brother, I sent you a message on Facebook. I hopefully you saw it. But inshallah, brother, since you're here, I want to do a show with you. We need to team up, brother. We need to team up. Just like these people are teaming up, we need to team up and do work together as well. So I see that you have a common opponent as well, David Wood, that I've had in the past as well. So inshallah, brother Radash Shubahat, I would like to get in contact with you so we can, inshallah, do a show together and discuss some of the issues that you have between you and David Wood and expose what's going on. I know you said you're going to do some series, so I don't want to interrupt that either. But inshallah, if we could do a show together and, you know, still discuss some of those issues, that would be greatly appreciated. So when you get a chance, let's talk. You know, we can talk through Facebook or call each other or whatever. And like to talk about that, inshallah. I think that would be a good show. That would be a very good show. What's this? All right. Yeah, inshallah, I think that would be a very good show. Because that's what they're doing. They're teaming up with each other. David Wood is teaming up with the apostate prophet. The apostate prophet is teaming up with, you know, he's doing shows with Robert Spencer and all that. So we need to start to form alliances as well, right? We need to start forming alliances as well, and we need to start working together with each other just the same, so we can strengthen our arguments and such. So is he still here? I don't know. I just saw his tweet. His comment is on the screen. Hopefully he's still here, inshallah. But either way, I contacted him through on Facebook, so hopefully he got my message, and me and him will be able to team up together and do a show, and inshallah do other projects together as well. But yeah, we definitely need to collaborate. And others too, other brothers and sisters who are out there. Yeah, we need to work together. We need to collaborate, do shows together, share information, and strengthen our arguments, strengthen our our bond, and let's counter these haters and these bigots against Islam. For sure, no doubt about that. No doubt about it. All right, so as I said, I just wanted to address the issue because it's being sold as if, the Muslims were complicit in these terrorist attacks, whether it's the one in Sri Lanka or in other places that have taken place, when the reality is that Muslims, as we have seen, have actually been involved in reporting those who were plotting these plans and things of that nature. All right? So, and anybody who watches this who's not a Muslim, I want you to see and understand as well that the myth that the Muslims are quiet, complicit, that they're not doing anything about terrorist attacks, whether it's the one in Sri Lanka or in other places that have taken place, when the reality is that Muslim is that's a myth, right? That's not true. That the Muslims have been speaking out. We have been, in our communities exposing this, on the lookout for such things, because like that sister from the article that I read, of course we don't want to have the image that we support terrorism. See, now that's the thing to think about too. That if that's how we really were, we wouldn't care, right? If we Muslims really supported this kind of stuff, then we wouldn't care if that our image was of a people who supported that. But the fact that we're reporting these things is to show that Muslims are concerned, that we do not support and condone this type of activity. We don't support it. And we don't want our names and our image as Muslims to be tainted by what these people do. No more than white people don't want to be tainted by the New Zealand shooter, or the guy who just did the shooting at the synagogue the other day in California, or the one who did the one in Pennsylvania last year, right? But of course, with those groups, they don't get painted with a wide brush, right? I was just arguing with somebody on Twitter the other day about that. He was doing the same thing, blaming all the Muslims. So somebody reminded him about all the acts that white terrorists have done. He said, "Oh, but those are only lone wolves." Yeah, see that? Even though there have been several dozen of them, but the white community doesn't get blamed, right? The white community doesn't get blamed. Those are lone wolves. So I had to call him out. I said, interesting. Even though there have been as many, if not more, acts of terror here committed in America in the last recent years by white terrorists, white racist terrorists, you still say lone wolf. You still say lone wolf. But for the Muslims, we're all responsible. We're all to blame. Islam as a whole is to blame. But when a white racist does it, oh no, we can't blame all whites. Right? We can't blame all whites for that. Oh, well then but why is it okay to blame all Muslims? Well, it's the idea. Oh, well then I can. If you want to play that game, we can play that game too. Then we can say, well, then we can say, well, then you whites have the ideology of white racism, and all of you are to blame. But that wouldn't be right. Now, would it? Right? That wouldn't be right, and it's not right. Yet it's okay for them to blame all of Islam and all Muslims for the act of these lone wolf, these rogue people who commit these acts. But we as Muslims got to take the blame. But they don't have to take the blame for the synagogue shooters, the mosque shooters, the black church burners, right? They don't have to take the blame for that, right? But we do. We as Muslims, we need to say something. We need to speak out. But they don't all have to speak out for that. It's a double standard. And like I said, that's going to be my next show. Inshallah, that's going to be the next show that I'm going to do. I want to talk about that. Talk about that double standard and that hypocrisy that we witness. All right, so with that being said, it's up to me, don't forget. Yeah, inshallah. What's the name? What's the brother's name? Bilal Islam Apologize. Okay, I'll check you out, brother. I'll check you out, and I'll subscribe as well. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Any last comments anybody have to make? We'll go ahead and wrap it up. In the meantime, brothers and sisters, don't forget to support your brother, Mr. Islam Answers Back. Alhamdulillah, I want to thank those who we finally reached our goal. We finally reached our goal of 5 patrons on Patreon. We finally reached 5. So now, as I told you, once we reach 5, our next goal is to go to 10. Our next goal is to get 10 patrons. Okay? So, mashallah, we reached our goal of 5. Thank you for those who joined. Now the goal is to reach to 10. Okay? Now we're going to try to go for 10. And then after we get 10, we're going to go to 20, then 50, then 100, so forth and so on. But right now, we have 5. That was my goal. Very small number compared to what the haters have, but it's a start. We got to start somewhere. So next is to go to 10, all right? So I'm looking for 5 people to join the Patreon page so we can reach our goal of 10. All right? We're trying to get up to 10 patrons. All right? So, all right, let's see. You got a question. Somebody has a question here. What's the question? Comedy man. Comely man has a question. What's the question? Where did we go wrong? Salam. Wa alaikum salam. All right, comely man, what's your question? What's your question? Before we wrap it up, what's your question? We're just waiting for a question from comely man. He says he has a question. So, all right. Have seen Muhammad Ali on interracial marriages. No, I have not seen Muhammad Ali on interracial marriages. I have not seen, no, I have not seen Muhammad Ali, I view or whatever, on interracial marriages. No, I have not. Can you still go to heaven if you don't pray Salah but believe in Allah? I can't answer that, man. That's up to Allah. You know what I mean? Allah is the judge. However, I can say, at least from what we know, that not praying could delay your going to heaven, because you're not praying, right? You're not fulfilling a command that's you're responsible for. So I can't say for sure that you won't be able to go to heaven, because that's a judgment that Allah makes. But that could perhaps be an obstacle in your way to getting there without any to getting there I guess freely without any issues. That could cause issue for you, because you would be in a state of disobedience. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I would say would be the answer to that. All right, okay, answer yes, but you being helped for a long time. Well, right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That would be an obstacle in your way, because you're not praying. You're not fulfilling an obligation that is upon you. So I can't say that it would completely keep you from going, because you have part of your fulfillment. You do believe in Allah. However, you're not being obedient. You know what I'm saying? You're not being obedient. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna do some more videos. Like I said, today is a nice day, so inshallah, I think I'll do another video. I'll probably, like I did last week or a few days ago, I'll do two shows. So I'll take a little break, and then I'll come back with another show, probably on the other issue that I wanted to talk about the double standard, the hypocrisy. So it'll probably be something called what I got. I already have a name for it. It's called the basically what I'll be talking about is the hypocrisy of the people that I mentioned: David Wood, Robert Spencer, Apostate Prophet, and such. How they're always concerned. They always want to talk about an incident when Muslims are involved, but when a white racist is involved, right? A lot of times they'll either play it down, or they'll make an excuse to try to turn it around some kind of way, or they won't talk about it at all, right? So, like, for example, like I mentioned, I was looking at Robert Spencer's Twitter, and he's talking all this stuff about what the Muslims have done, this and that. I'm like, oh, but you didn't say nothing about the black churches that were being burned. I looked to see today if he said anything about the shooting in the synagogue. Nothing. I didn't see anything about it. Right? I didn't see anything about it. But see, that's how they do. When a Muslim is involved, oh yeah, they got a whole bunch to tell you about. They got a whole bunch to say. But when a white racist does something, or a white racist Christian does something, now there's nothing to talk about. Either there's nothing to talk about, or they try to downplay it. Right? They try to downplay it, like as if it was really no big deal. Or they'll just totally ignore it and then say, "Oh, look how everybody's concerned about the Muslims." Like they'll in other words, they'll find some way to be negative about it, but not talk about the issue, about the problem. So they'll find some way to turn it around to be negative about Muslims. Oh, look how everybody's talking about the Muslims, but you don't talk about this, but you don't talk about that. You know what I mean? So I was like, wow. So you can't even they just can't bring themselves to just be empathetic to the Muslims at all. Basically, they can't show themselves to show any empathy towards Muslims at all. Notice me, I still notice, even though I talked about this issue, but notice I still took time out to condemn the acts against the Sri Lankans Christians. Notice that, right? You notice that, right? I still took time out to condemn the act that these Muslims, these alleged Muslims, are accused of having done. Right? I took time out to condemn it. But you listen, you see Robert Spencer and David and all of them, many times they will not offer an actual direct condemnation of the act against Muslims. Instead, they'll ignore that and they'll find some way to turn it around to make it negative. That, oh, you know, look how everybody's, showing support to the Muslims. But when the Muslims did this to this church, you didn't say it. So I'm like, wow. So you can't even take a moment to just acknowledge that, hey, these Muslims have been violated. Instead, no, find a way to try to make it negative about Muslims again. Try to turn it around. You know what I mean? Like, they just can't even just show any empathy. But notice I took time out in this subject to condemn the act, to say that it was senseless, to say that it was wrong, to say that it brings no benefit. If the Muslims in Sri Lanka are being oppressed, doing this brings you no benefit. To harm these people who are just regular worshipers, they're not, they have nothing to do with your oppression. And for you to harm them is completely wrong and against Islam. I took the time out to do that. But watch, I challenge you guys, do that. Go look on Robert Spencer's Twitter or David's Twitter and see. Go back to and look on their timeline when these acts take place against Muslims and see what they have to say about it. You'll see that they find a way to try to turn it around back, to show no empathy toward the Muslims, but to somehow blame Islam or Muslims in some kind of way. You'll see that. You'll see that. So yeah, as I said, I think I'm going to do another show. I'm going to do another show today. I'm going to do 2 shows today as well. What's this here? I'm going to do 2 shows today as well. So I'm going to take a break. And maybe another hour or 2, I'll do another show, probably on that subject that I just mentioned. Okay, so look out for that. Thank you all for tuning in. All right, one more time, don't forget, please support your brother through any of these means. Let's get the word out. Let's expand our platform and help me to do the work that needs to be done. Help me to amplify my voice and amplify the platform and get it out there. And like I said, I want to do some collaborations with some of the other people who are out here doing the same kind of work. Let's get together. Let's work with each other. Let's help each other with information. If you have some information that I could use or I have something that you could use in your discussion or your topic or whatever, let's help each other out and let's collaborate just like these people are collaborating. Let's help each other expand our platforms, because we all need a voice. We all need to get more voices out there. Just like they have several voices out there, we also need to have several voices who are countering them as well. Can't fall on the shoulders of just one person. So let's help each other expand our platforms. You help me expand mine, I'll help you expand yours. I'll come on your show, you come on my show, we'll go on another brother show or sister show, and let's collaborate and work with each other and do the same thing to get our voices heard. Inshallah. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the show here, and then we will continue. Like I said, give me about an hour or 2, inshallah. All right? Assalamu alaikum.